Welcome to Before It Was Headlines, It Was Prophecy. I'm Katie Elizabeth. And it's been quite a week of contemplation, and I'd like to share that with you today. I woke the other morning to the thought of how would Abraham have handled the Ishmael situation if there'd been Facebook? And I think of the prophecies that Yeshua gave us about the end of days in Matthew. And I know there are many people talking about a mass exodus and all of that, but I truly believe we are living in the last days, the end of days. But when Yeshua was talking about those things, he didn't refer to as in the days of Moses. He referred to as in the days of Noah. And I'd like to cover just a couple of things because it's truly dawned on me that we have taken the whole idea of family values and Americana, all of that, and we've really made it a self-focused, man-made doctrine. So I'm going to talk about it for just a couple of minutes. And I've got a fly in my office, and as you can see, I am still not in my studio. What the problem I thought it was, and I thought I had solved it, well, it didn't. So here I sit, still at my drawing board, but we're going to talk about this topic today because I think it's very important that we understand this, especially before the High Holy Days are upon us. Because as I was looking, it was like, Noah got in the ark, I believe it was through the 7th month. The 7th month is mentioned in the account of Noah. So let's talk about this. To be real honest, I really think this whole family values agenda is another way to divide us socially rather than get us back into a real morality. Obviously, America's not seeking stronger morals. And it's not really scripturally based, it's trend based. We have Christian psychology rather than Torah, which has done nothing but introduce self-focus and works, if you will, while diluting the teaching of the power of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh. And I always want to ask the spare the rod and spoil the child advocates if they set the example of Torah while claiming the authority of it. It's funny, war and punishment seem to be the only real Torah ideals the majority of our religious society chooses to uphold. Attaching the term Christian to psychology doesn't make it scriptural or sanctified. It just makes it our own idea of what's acceptable or not acceptable. And I've been reading a lot about, how we're to focus on families. And I thought of the families in Torah, and I'll get to that in just a minute, and how this is coming into between conquer and, the rider on the white horse. And where a true Torah-based family has just about been conquered by our society. They have to be they are considered very outside of mainstream. Also, I've been reading about I don't know if they call themselves full quiver or quiver full folk, but whatever it is, as far as this is my take on it, people should absolutely welcome babies into the world. But we should also allow the older children to get to be children in a family instead of babysitters and domestic help. And as reality TV has set in, of course, you can't escape the fact that there has been more notoriety and more attention focused on this whole full quiver idea since the Duggar reality family has been on, or reality show, whatever. And I've actually been privy to a family who I believe they now have 8 children. I think it's 8. And they're all very young children since the Duggars have become famous. And all their children's names begin with a K. And I believe it's the Duggars who have the J's. So, we need to really be aware that, procreation is it is the parent's responsibility And Yeshua did talk about, woe unto them who, are with child or who have the little young ones. If we really are believing this is an end of times, people who feel free to, I'm not saying don't procreate, but you have to be ready to provide for all those people as the times get tougher. And that's something we need to be taking into consideration. Well, I don't have to particularly, but you can tell by the color of my hair, it's not a big issue for me. But these younger families that are saying, we're just going to have, you need to be able to see that and see that in Scripture. That you don't want to put yourself or your children in a position of being helplessly dependent. I was reading about, some of this survival and prepper stuff and all of this, and a young man made a very, very profound statement. And I know, I'm old enough to be his mother, at least. And he said, that all sounds fine, and I might be able to do that, but I have 3 small children to be concerned about. And I thought, bravo for that guy. Bravo for him. He's thinking about the bigger picture. And I was impressed with that. And, I want to encourage him in that responsible perspective. Not that we're supposed to shut down our living or our perpetual, what Yudhe has ordained that we would procreate, but we have to do it responsibly. I'm guilty of this as far as, obviously my children are grown, but, my children grew up through the time where the American dream and the materialism was rampant. And so they have that perspective now of, they're seeing it as well as the end of days unfold or whatever they're seeing, the economy decline, however they're choosing to look at it, because I was not a Torah observant believer raising my children. And I will, unfortunately, so I had a family outside of the plan of God, and I can't say, okay, now that I'm paying attention, fix the mess I made, because he doesn't work for me. I serve him now. But as the generation that most of the boomers produced, as they're seeing the economy get shaky and collapse and the jobs availability, a lot of them have the concept that, well, I better grab it while I can, I better enjoy it while I can because it's coming to an end. And that's a very self-focused perspective also. Because what are their children going to count on? Who are their children going to count on? Most families, truly couldn't work together in a community setting. They really couldn't and survive. And Yeshua said the last days would prove that out, that, the contention and literally the enemy, your foe would be in your own household. Mothers have given over, as we come down, I mentioned the economy, the rider on the black horse, see how it's even going to affect families. And now the rider on the power horse, mothers have given over their God-given authority to doctors and pharmaceuticals, for the most part. Procreation is not an illness. The first hands on your child do not have to be in a hospital with somebody standing there with a needle ready to jab in their teeny tiny little leg for something that, as a vaccination, that they're not even going to be exposed to under ordinary circumstances. That is what's happening. Children are a heritage from Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, not a tax-deductible government issue. And we've got to get back hold of that. I'm going to mention just a couple. I'm running short on time here. But I'm going to go over just a few of the family greats of Scripture. We first start, everyone wants to refer to Adam and Eve, family values, heterosexual couple. But, the beginning of marriage, ordained family. They gave birth to the very first murderer and the very first murder victim. So it wasn't until their third child that anybody had a potential clue at all, if you want to talk about, quote, family values. So that's something to consider. Abraham sent his firstborn packing. That's how I began this program. Ishmael was a mocker. He was mocking the promise. I don't know what all transpired, but I know Abraham's sitting packing with his mother. Now, he still had a promise to be a great nation, and we're all living with that. But the child that was conceived and born outside of the plan of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh did not get included in the promise. And many of us who took it upon ourselves to make the timing rather than in Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh's timing could account for why we have such an angry, mocking nation. We have to at least ask ourselves that. Isaac and Rebekah had no problem playing favorites. And those two, one had the lead thing and the other one's going to kill him for years and years and years. And Jacob had no trouble playing favorites. So we need to look at this idea that we're promoting family values and say, what are we referring? The family of King David was anything but exemplary. Oh my land, and there's all kinds of things went on in King David's family, and this was after Torah was given, don't forget. Yet David was called a man after God's own heart. Now I'm going to wind the show up with this. Of course parents are supposed to take care of their children. But you know what? If we are truly pleasing to Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, we will parent properly. If we're in his plan, we will do it properly. The family focus idea and the spiritual, I believe, is a spiritual distraction, which is really causing us to focus on our children, and that's a form of idolatry, whether we like it or not. Or the focus on marriage and family, that is a form of spiritual adultery if it takes precedence over Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh. And in many cases, that is what we're doing. We're following the social trends, and so many cases we have done that in our society. Calling it good, we're good people. Well, it doesn't make us godly people. We're just good in our own eyes. Now, this whole idea of family focus or whatever, I truly do believe is a spiritual distraction. And we need to get back on focus. We really do. For everyone who is saying we believe these are the end of days, we've got to get back on focus. Based upon what Yeshua said in Matthew 10, I have no reason to think that many of those who are actually seeking and serving Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh right now or have come to him recently will not enjoy the traditional religious American family that's been promoted. If these are the end of days, we need to get back in there. Matthew 10, Matthew 24, and 25. Those are the things that we need to be looking at and saying, okay, as a parent, as a grandparent, as someone who's considering marriage or parenting, what do I really need to be doing to take care of this personally? We can all stand and cast our stones about the decisions Washington's making. But what do I need to do personally? As those riders are covering the earth, we still have to personalize this and say, I will give an account for the fact that we are living in the days of Noah. What do I do for a family? How do I take care of my family? What is a trend and what is truth? This has been Before It Was Headlines, It Was Prophecy with Katie Elizabeth.